Hello and welcome back to our channel with a new video. Today we will discuss all you need to know about 8 ways to discipline children properly without breaking their spirit. So without further ado, let's start with today's video. Do you agree that a discipline is an act of love? Are we showing our children love, and do they feel our undeniable love for them while we are in the act of discipline? Is that possible? Watch and find out. Sometimes, teaching must involve disciplining your child. How should you do it effectively, without causing physical or emotional harm, but correcting the bad behavior, so it doesn't repeat itself or, even worse, become chronic? It isn't always easy, but that's for sure. Children have an instinctive knowledge of how to push their parents' buttons. But there are several strategies you can employ that ensure the best possible outcome, stopping bad behavior, and that doesn't make you feel guilty that you've hurt your child somehow, emotionally speaking. The next time your child starts acting out, or acting poorly, or otherwise exhibiting bad behavior, consider these suggestions for dealing with it. 1. Prior to the onset of bad behavior. Before you're put in the position of having to discipline your child, consider this: don't just talk about good behavior, model it. In other words, as the old saying goes, do as you do. If you want your child to have good table manners, for example, be sure you have them yourself. Chances are, if your son or daughter sees you putting your napkin in your lap from a very young age, they will eventually start doing it too. And if you are not slurping drinks, chances are they won't begin doing it. Children are mirrors of adult behavior, and we can usually tell a lot about the parent by watching how the child behaves. After all, they learn their lessons about this at their parents' knee, so if you want them to act in a certain way, you must act that way yourself. 2. Explain the consequences of bad behavior. Once your child is old enough to understand the basic principles of right and wrong, they are old enough to understand the fundamental logic of consequences and the concept of empathy. For example, let's say that your older child keeps taking a toy away from a younger child, and they end up in tears and a shouting match. Explain to your older child why it upsets his sibling and how, if the situations were reversed, they would be upset too. Some disagreements between siblings are completely natural, so don't make the consequences extreme. But don't ignore it either, and think, kids fight, it's no big deal. This is one of those situations that affords you the opportunity of teaching your children about the importance of considering other people's feelings. 3. Don't overreact. If your child knocks over a vase that was very dear to you, don't imbue the incident with too much gravity. It was likely an accident, and everyone has those, right? Making the child feel awful about a genuine accident is no way to teach them life skills, and shouting will only make them, and you, feel worse. Keep the incident in perspective. Explain why you are upset, but don't let the situation drag on all day or send them to their room for a minor mishap. 4. Give more compliments than criticism. Constantly making your child feel like they are not good enough, refined enough, or independent enough is sure to contribute to anxiety and insecurity. It's vital that you praise your child's good behavior as much as you correct and criticize their bad behavior. Keeping the focus on what your child does well fosters happiness and security. It also means that when you do correct or criticize, they are far more likely to pay attention to what you're saying and accept whatever discipline you mete out. 5. Use timeouts judiciously. Please don't send your child to their room every time they do something irritating or upsetting. All that does is demonstrate you are out of patience and unable to deal with the child's tantrum or bad behavior. Most experts agree that timeouts should be saved for those moments when a situation is escalating, and you, the parent, need a few minutes to compose yourself and arrive at a suitable punishment for whatever your child has done. Being apart from each other allows tempers to cool, yours and your child's, and fosters clear communication about the problem when you're back together. 6. Describe. Explain how and why their behavior was wrong and why you are disciplining them. Don't assume that your child automatically understands why something is wrong simply because they see you are upset. Telegraphing it with visible anger is not enough. You must clearly and, as calmly as possible, explain why their actions were unacceptable. This ties into the previous point about explaining the consequences. If it's not the first time the child has acted improperly, let's say your son pulled a neighbor's ponytail, and she started crying, be sure to remind him of why hurting others is so serious. And if the behavior does repeat itself, the discipline should become more severe with each infraction. The first time, perhaps ban screen time for 2 hours. For each incident after that, discipline should be more pronounced, perhaps a whole evening with no screens. Any discipline involving loss of screen time certainly gets children's attention these days. 7. Listen to your child's explanation for behaving as they did. If something happens at school, for example, or in a social setting where other adults were supervising, do not just take the word of other people that your child was at fault for something. Ask your child to explain what happened, and listen closely to their explanation of why, from their perspective, the unfortunate event occurred. Base your discipline on their response, not the beliefs of other people. There may have been subtle forces at play that caused your child to, for example, lash out at another child. Were they being bullied or made fun of? Always get an explanation from your child, and proceed from there. 8. The experts have spoken, never spank. No matter how angry you become or how poorly your child behaves, never, ever strike them, not even a swat on their bottom. Researchers and child psychologists have been studying the effects of spanking for years, and they've concluded that parents who spank, even once, have failed their children. It demonstrates that you've lost your words and your wits, and have resorted to something you would never do to an adult, no matter how angry you get. That means you've spanked your child because you have the advantage of size. What does that say? Remember, long after you've put the incident behind you, or tried to, your child will experience lingering, deleterious emotional effects. And angry adults often don't know how strong they are, so spanking a child can cause serious and lasting harm physically. Last but not least, these tips can be resoundingly effective if you employ them regularly, follow through with boundaries and ground rules, and don't keep moving the line in the sand because you're too tired to deal with bad behavior at the moment. Children actually want their parents to discipline them because it demonstrates love, commitment to their well-being, and involvement in their lives. They aren't born knowing right and wrong. It's your job to teach them by modeling good behavior, setting limits, and remembering that there is a big difference between severe punishment and consistent, constructive discipline. Correcting bad behavior must never cause harm to the child's emotional well-being, and as the parent, it's your job, your duty, to always preserve their well-being. Still need more information on this topic? Don't worry. We have got you covered. Check out the links in the description box below to learn more about our resources and other helpful materials. Before you go anywhere, make sure to give our video a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel and click on the bell symbol so you don't miss any of our intriguing videos. Stay tuned until next week.